Welcome, or welcome back. Today, I want to dive into another behind the design. I make these behind the design videos for one particular reason. I hope it sparks an idea. If it doesn't do that, maybe it'll give you a tip or at least give you a fresh perspective on your own project. I chose today's design to touch on the importance of planning the interior space, in this case a kitchen, before going and altering or adding windows and doors. Now, this is a really super cool old log cabin with a massive addition. In other words, I have a blank slate. This might seem daunting, no limitations, no preconceived notions about how that space should be laid out, but I want to flip that script and challenge you to let your creativity and imagination more or less run wild. My client set me out with one particular direction, a bespoke English style kitchen with a large stucco statement style range hood. I also had some information that the views out the back of the house were much better than the views out the side without really anything noteworthy in that direction. This became the jumping point for the entire project. This kitchen is huge, a whopping 20 feet by 17 feet with roughly 340 square feet of floor space that we can work with. That makes up roughly a little over a third of the new addition. The main challenge with that was creating a kitchen that is still functional, keeping a working area that is somewhat centralized. I also wanted to bring in tons of natural light, but while balancing that with as much storage as possible. Now remember, I knew there was nothing special out that side wall of the kitchen, so this was going to become the starting point of the kitchen. I planned to put absolutely no windows on there and concentrate my storage on that side. This also meant though that the other wall, or the soon-to-be sink wall that faced into the backyard, was going to be full of windows with very limited wall storage, maybe even none. It would need a fridge, a range, and at least one pantry cabinet. Part of the renovation also included a butler's pantry just off the kitchen, so a single pantry cabinet would be plenty for those everyday kitchen items. I began working off the left side, first the pantry, then the fridge. I prefer to keep the fridge away from corners, and in this case it also moves it closer to what will be the main working area of the kitchen. From there I placed the range. I wanted to keep it centered between the fridge and the main corner of the kitchen. Remember, I eventually have a statement range hood going in, and it needs to have some symmetry to pull the eyes in. That led to the surrounding base cabinets, a pull-out to one side, and as much drawer storage as space would allow, and then the range hood. This was all fine and dandy, but it lacked character, and there was still a ton of open wall space. So I tried some glass cabinets on each side of the range hood, but that didn't look quite right, and I still hadn't really taken advantage of those 10-foot ceilings. With as much space as there was around the range, bringing the cabinets all the way down to the countertop just made sense. Add some glass doors, and we're starting to get that English kitchen feel. Finally, this wall was finished off by a second row of cabinets up top and crown molding to give it all that built-in look. This kitchen is really starting to take shape. I'm happy with how that wall's looking, and now it's a matter of balancing this wall of storage and this wall of cabinets with a more open wall that brings in a ton of natural light. Therefore, on the sink wall, this would be all about the windows. I placed the large patio slider to find the true endpoint of the kitchen, or at least close to it. From there, the center of the wall, and then the first window. And that marks the location of my sink. Now, if you're familiar with English style kitchens, they don't often have just a single window. They're often in groups of 3 or 5, sometimes made to look like a giant window, and they typically have some sort of decorative mullions in the windows as well. I did a little math, allowing for framing in between, and I added 5 windows along this wall. The goal is to eventually use finishing trim to make that entire batch look like one big unit without the cost of it being one large window. With the sink in place, I worked my way back to the corner and off towards the patio doors. This was a large family, and 2 dishwashers was a request, and there is more than enough room to accomplish this. Once again, drawer storage rounded out the rest of the base cabinets. Alrighty, we're starting to make a little bit of progress, and this kitchen is coming together. However, there's still a large elephant in the room. Well, not really an elephant, but a large dance floor in the middle of the kitchen that needs something there. So obviously we're going to be putting an island in place, but the question is how big? Now, I did have a little more inside information. We're planning to pour custom concrete slabs. So size isn't really a huge issue here because I don't need to worry about seams from stone slabs. There was a ton of time spent tinkering with cabinets for this island, how to maximize storage and still leave enough seating for all the kids. Ultimately, it ended up with cabinets facing all 4 sides of the island. Some deep pull-out cabinets for garbage and recycling on the sink side, a home for the microwave, a large open shelved section for baking items below the butcher block portion of the countertop, and then simply shallow base cabinets on a few other areas to add a little more storage. All of this while still leaving seating for 6. This is probably the largest island by square footage that I've ever designed, or at least very close to it. The whole island is topped off with custom concrete countertops, except for one section at the end that was going to be made up of butcher block, an area to roll out cookies or knead bread dough, more of a baking specific section. Finally, I added a built-in coffee bar or tea bar, kind of an entertainment area off to the other side of the kitchen to round out the cabinets for the space. In the end, both my client and I were incredibly happy with how this kitchen turned out. It flows well, there's tons of storage, and the main working area should be highly functional. The small details like the crown molding, the large windows, the range hood details, furniture legs on the island, and the arched coffee bar all help to create that bespoke English kitchen feel we were aiming for. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're able to design before adding or altering any windows or doors, I highly encourage you to do so. If not, and you tuned in anyways and you're still sticking around, maybe you gained an idea or two, or at least gained some insight into how I think my way through a blank canvas. Again, as always, thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.